Interchurch Networks. I am here today with Matt Slippy. Matt Slippy is a youth pastor at Calvary Church in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and is devoted to disciple making. And he's one of our youth pastors who we've really started to work through what does disciple making look like? How do we define it in our network? Could you maybe unpack for us this idea of what is disciple making? What is discipleship? How should we as a network define what this is?
Yeah, the word discipleship is thrown around a lot, and probably most people, when they think of the word discipleship, the first trigger is a class or a program. And then in churches, oftentimes, we have a discipleship program, we have a class. And we think that when we get done with the class, then we've done whatever, disciple, whatever. So the Great Commission, Jesus was very, very clear. Now all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, Matthew 28, 18. Therefore go and make disciples. The command is to make disciples. You do that by going, by baptizing, by teaching. Those are kind of the three participial phrases that help us understand how to make disciples. What is our end goal? Jesus actually had a picture of what he was going. Those are the two things I think Jesus, when we study his life, study through the Gospels, he clearly had an end goal. It was not about getting someone done, yay, but a fully trained disciple is a multiplier, someone that multiplies out. You need to have a picture of the product, and you also have to have a method of how you're going to get there, or a strategy of how you're going to get there. Jesus sets the mission. Mm-hmm. Our mission this side of eternity is to make disciples, who make disciples. Jesus said in John 15:8, it is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit. That's the vine and the branches, all right? That you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. In other words, the goal of a disciple is to become like their rabbi.
In general, how should we as leaders start thinking through what are practical processes in order to reach that mission? Could you maybe speak into, if we're going to sit down and kind of plan out our philosophy of ministry, what are maybe some categories or some thoughts that we can go as we make our way to the mission?
Not so much. The first question is am I a disciple maker? Do I understand the process of making disciples? Because before I structure a ministry that is helping people to be discipled, I need to know if I am a disciple, because I can't create something that I'm not. That makes sense. Three words that sum up, I think, Jesus's strategy is missional. Jesus he understood the mission, understood where he was going. Right? Why do I have small groups on Wednesday night? To make disciples. Okay. Why do I invite my neighbors over for dinner? To make disciples. So everything that Jesus did was going toward that mission. So mission. Second is relationships. Relational. The context for making disciples is relationships. And one of the things in churches, we need to help create space for relationships. So like at youth group, we have a lesson in we have different elements in youth group, but those elements are to help us cultivate healthy relationships with each other and relationships with Jesus. And disciples can't be microwaved. It is relationships, and relationships need to take time to cultivate and to develop. And Jesus had a limited amount of time, but he did not short circuit the process of making disciples by short circuiting in the context of healthy relationships. And then the third kind of big word that kind of oversees that is intentionality. Nothing was haphazard with Jesus. Everywhere he went, from Galilee down to Judea, he was intentionally growing and grooming his guys, giving them the experiences that they needed, giving them the knowledge, building up the knowledge base, giving them opportunities to highlight where their attitudes were good and bad toward people, or the prejudices and stuff, how to have healthy relationships with the sinner and with the Pharisee and with each other and with their so He was very intentional on that. So 3 words would be missional, relational, intentional. No matter where you are, if you're in Bloomer, Wisconsin, if you're Cedar Rapids, Iowa, I can go toward the mission. I can cultivate relationships. I can be intentional in how I'm doing that. And I think there's some freedom there in principle in our different contexts. That's why
I would encourage any youth pastors, whether you've been in the ministry for years, decades, or if you're just coming into a ministry, I think it's important for you to sit down and look at, okay, what's my mission? That should be a given. Go and make disciples. What are my words? Be missional, be relational, and be intentional. And senior pastors, I think maybe even more so for you, you have this pressure of just getting caught up in just what needs to be done, but don't overlook those things, because bottom line is you're not called to be a good preacher. You're not called to lead all these small groups. You're called to make disciples, and don't lose that fact. Don't lose that mission. So if you or your church or your leadership in your church would like to dive in deeper about discipleship and growing that and starting to form that pathway in your church, Matt does an incredible job of coming to churches and laying that out and helping you and your church and your leadership team start processing through that to make a defined goal, a defined process for your church. So if that's something you're interested in, please reach out. I'll have Matt's email in the bio section at the bottom. Feel free to reach out to him and see if you can bring him in and use that as a tool to help you become disciple-making church. So for that, thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Chuck. This was fun.
Go and make disciples.